So all right, let's welcome her on here. Get her on here. The one and only Miss Kristyn Burtt. What's going on, Kristyn?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Excellent. Nursing a little bit of a cold, but I'm on the mend, so that's the good news.
Oh, well, that's good. Hey, at least it's not the flu, because that's like the thing going around everywhere.
It really is. We have it bad here in California, and I am knocking on wood that I will not get the flu. I didn't do a flu shot either, so I don't usually do it.
I don't either.
I don't know if that's dumb or not. I don't know.
I think that whole flu shot thing is like a hoax. I don't believe in it at all.
I asked my doctor, and she's like, for the virus that's going around California, it's only about 10% effective. And I'm like, you know what? I'm someone, I've got to be honest, like, I throw up, like, once every other decade. Like, I just don't get the stomach flu. I just don't. I have an iron stomach. If, I get sick, it goes right to my throat, which is what happened. I had like 2 weeks of laryngitis, and then it evolved into a cold. And I was like, you know what? That's what it's going to be for me. That's my weak spot on my body.
Yeah, that's me. Like mine is just like that, a cold, and that's it. Like, and I should knock on wood because my younger daughter was sent home from school last week. She didn't have the full blown flu, but she had part of it. And then my older daughter, she got sent home from work today because she thinks it's coming in. Yeah. So,
no.
Right. I'm just kind of like hiding away from everybody.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful. Wash your hands like every 5 feet. And wear a medical mask in your house if everyone's home with the flu.
My wife had to take my young daughter to the doctors, and she walked in, and they asked her, like, do you have the flu? And she said, I think I do. And they put a mask right on her.
Yes, they were doing that. When I traveled a few weeks ago, I wore a medical mask, which I don't normally, and I'm traveling next week. I'm going to wear it on the plane again. And It's just something, and it's just not something that I normally do, but I'm just so busy right now. I don't have 2 weeks to sit there and lay in bed and get better. So if I have to wear a medical mask on a plane for a couple hours, I can deal with it, I look ridiculous, but you know what? I'm going to feel much better on the back end. And I didn't get sick in Detroit, and I'm not planning on getting sick in Chicago. So
nice. Good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my plan. That's my plan.
Speaking of being sick, I saw the other day, and it made me think right away, like, how is she doing? You put a picture up of Maria Menounos and you together the other day, and I was wondering, like, you really never heard nothing, like, after the whole, like, brain cancer scare or whatever it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually, one of the studios I work for, she's one of my bosses, Maria Menounos, so I know her pretty well. She's doing great. I was on her Sirius XM show yesterday, and which is called Conversations with Maria. We had Peter Murgatroyd on, who is on, of course, Dancing with the Stars. But Maria looks great. She's fit. She's on her way to the Super Bowl this weekend, of course, to root on our fellow New England Patriots because she's also from Boston. And, the one big thing, the big takeaway for her particular brain tumor was benign, but her mother does have a cancerous brain tumor. And, she's still fighting it. But for Maria, the good news is that it's kind of changed her perspective. Obviously it's something that she kind of changed her job. She left E! News. She felt like, she had other purposes to serve, and she's continuing to do that. And I think she finally married Kevin Undergaro, who has been her fiance a long time. He's been her boyfriend for 2 decades. They got married, obviously, on Fox on New Year's Eve. And I think, they're ready to maybe start a family. So I just think it changed a lot first on the personal side.
Oh, nice. Good for them. They seem like such a great couple. Like, all the times I've heard them on, like, Howard Stern and stuff, and I was just like,
of course.
Yeah.
They're both great people. I probably know Kevin a little bit better than I know Maria because Kevin's more of my point person at the network that I work for. Okay. But at the same time, like, Maria's lovely, and I was honored that she had me on her show as her Dancing with the Stars expert, so I appreciate that.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And my first time on Sirius XM, so there you
go. Very good. Another little check on the resume there.
You got to do
it. So I'm dying to know what the first story is. I think I know, and or maybe I do.
Okay,
it could be one
there's
too.
two really old stories that are resurfacing. Two old stories. I guess I'll start with the one that's been it started brewing over the weekend, and it was a Twitter war essentially. But Scott Baio and Nicole Eggert. And geez, I don't even know where to start with this, but obviously the two of them worked together on Charles in Charge. He was obviously about 8 years older than her when she started. She was about 14. She joined season 2. And he was about 22, 23, obviously older, and she was a teenager. She alleges that she was molested by him when she was 14, 15, 16, and that she then lost her virginity to him at 17. He's saying none of the molestation happened, but he does not deny that he slept with her one time when she was of legal age, when she was 18 as an adult. I've got to look at this, and if I was a parent, I'd have a problem with it both ways. I've got to be honest. Only because the illegal part, if he molested her, that is obviously a huge problem. However, even if he didn't molest her, let's take out those allegations, and let's just say he did sleep with her that one time. You have to remember that this is someone that has been sort of a part of the family, a part of work, a part of friendship with, say, your daughter since she was 14, and then he sleeps with her when he's almost 30 years old and she's now 18.
Right.
I get that legally it's totally fine, but ethically and morally, I kind of have a problem with it. I feel like there's a weird boundaries issue. I don't know.
Yeah, he was like the father figure on the show, the big brother figure, and it was scary. Like when I was going through and watching the clips on TMZ, and they were showing the little side clips and panels. The scary part was I thought to myself, wow, Scott Baio looked really young then. But he was 30 years old.
Of course, he was a baby.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's a little bit weird. And I know that they kind of bragged about it, both sides, for a couple of years, thinking it was kind of funny that like Scott Baio slept with one of the girls on the show. And I guess at the time it didn't really raise too much of an eyebrow with everyone. Nicole Eggert, I got to tell you, because Nicole Eggert has always been really beautiful. Like when she was a teenager, she didn't have that awkward phase at all. I remember watching Charles in Charge being like, I wish I looked like that. And went on to Baywatch and things like that. The one thing, and she's now saying, she's telling TMZ that she is going to the police. So, again, you're not going to go to in this day and age, you're not going to go to the police with these false allegations. I've got to imagine. I mean, unless you're absolutely insane, she hasn't filed a civil suit, hasn't asked for money. You know what I mean? I don't really know, like, how many book deals. Like, because I know Scott's like, she's going to get a book deal, or that's what she wants. I don't know how big of a book deal you're going to get out of this. Do you know what I mean? Because neither of them are super famous anymore, you know. If it was about George Clooney, you might get a book deal. So my thoughts on all of this are she needs to go to the police. They need to both step aside from the public feud that's going on and the public stories and everything else, because he's angry. He's always angry because he's yelling at people on Twitter on the daily. And
is he really?
Like, yes, he's a big Trump supporter, which is fine. You know, he's been a Republican for a long time, but he decides to pick fights with people a lot who don't agree with him. And there's this weird, you have to go and find it. Some comedian has started a story that, like, Scott Baio has no job, so he works at Subway. So, like, Scott took time off for his Subway job and went on Good Morning America to defend himself. And, I mean, it's funny. I understand it because he wants to defend the allegations. He's got a family himself. He obviously has a Playboy reputation on one side, and we've known this for years and years and years. And then on her side, she had a very troubled, like, late teen, early 20s kind of thing. She got involved with Corey Haim. She kind of got involved with the drug scene and partying. I can look at that and say maybe that is sort of a reaction to being abused, possibly, or it's just a part of being a child star and being exposed to stuff too soon. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, and I'm really going to watch and see if she goes to the police on this.
It's funny because it just popped in my head too as you were saying, like, the whole Playboy image that Scott Baio had for, decades. Remember that first reality show they did with him where he went like back to old girlfriends about relationships and all?
Scott
she was
45 and single. Yes, Scott is 45 and single. Remember that.
Wow.
That was the legitimate name of the show, and he was like trying to decide whether he wanted to get married to his wife, his only wife, Renee.
Right.
And he was actually, this is crazy. He brags about this, but it's something that it does raise a little bit of a flag for me, where he was kicked out of the Playboy Mansion, and he was banned for a time because he had slept with, and I'm going to laugh as I say this at the same time, he slept with every single Playboy of the month for that year.
Right.
And it's funny, but at the same time, if you think about that, like every girl was totally willing to do this, but Hef was even like, dude, you got to just, nope, you're not welcome. It's not allowed. So there's just like a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on both sides. And, if she was abused, of course, God, that's awful to have to live with. And, he's like, she's been lying and she's been changing her story. And we do know that, like, listen, a lot of people have sat on stories for a long time. Sexual abuse survivors are obvious. I mean, we just watched this entire gymnastics team, talk about why they didn't say anything and why they went along with it. And, it's a tough one, but, if she has something there, she probably should go to the police. But we haven't heard anyone else come forward. That's something that's always important to think about, because usually other people come forward. So we'll see how this plays out.
Now, what about the whole Dr. Oz thing, where she actually filmed an episode about this a while ago, and they shelved it because they thought like the stories just didn't jive?
And then they aired it. Do you know they aired it this week after all that?
Oh, that's the one I thought they were, because didn't she go there to film a new one? Or
I don't know. Did she film a new one or is it the old one? But they now all of a sudden are like trying to listen to her story.
Huh. Because on TMZ they had backstage arguing with Dr. Oz's producers that she felt like they tried to make her look like a liar and stupid. And
yeah, and you have to remember, I mean, you have to look at all of these talk shows. They do have a legal team. So you have to look that there was something for them to not originally air the legal team raised a question about. And remember that Scott, when he did, his 15-minute Facebook Live over the weekend, he did present a lot of documents, and he did send those over to Dr. Oz. So there must have been something that raised a question with Dr. Oz's legal team, either saying, we're not sure, we need to investigate this more, or this makes us feel like the story's not true.
Right.
However, it was enough for her to be able to go on the Today Show with Megyn Kelly, and NBC lawyers were okay with it. So I think maybe once Dr. Oz saw that NBC had vetted it okay, that they were like, all right, let's take a chance on this. And when Scott was on Good Morning America, he was sitting right next to his lawyer. He brought his lawyer on air. I did see that. Nicole did not bring a legal representative on with her. She was happy to sit alone. And, of course, I want to add this because I think this is an important part of the equation. She is represented by Lisa Bloom, who is Gloria Allred's daughter. For some people, that automatically makes people think it's a money grab or it's a publicity stunt, just because it's hard, because I feel like Gloria Allred has done a lot of wonderful things in terms of like getting women's stories heard, but at the same time, she has also created a lot of settlements that create a lot of questions and issues. So I even like sometimes go, okay, I need to look at this really carefully.
Yeah, this whole thing. The one thing that, like, with Scott Baio has been very, like, out in front with this the whole thing, like totally adamant and standing up for himself. And this is going to be interesting the way this really plays out. And I think this is going to like set set the rules kind of like for this stuff going forward, because I mean we're seeing this, we talk about it every week, every day there's a new claim and somebody else is being accused, and this could like either open more floodgates or close floodgates, because it could deter people if like she's like turned out to where they say she's lying. Right.
Now she also does have 2 actors from the set who are saying that they believe her, and that Alex Polinsky was on the show with her, says I witnessed a lot of inappropriate cuddling and flirtation between them when she was underage, and I kind of buy some of that stuff probably did happen, because obviously if she was 18 and he was willing to wait and sleep with her, and again I'm just right for the second I'm throwing out the molestation allegations under 18, but that he obviously like waited until she was 18 and it was okay, and he's saying that she seduced him. I was not really into the art of seduction the very first time I slept with someone. I know that. And gosh, it would never be an older man. And also, I look at that and I'm like, but you couldn't control yourself thinking it might have been inappropriate? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of questions for me as a woman that I was like, why was he like, okay, I'll totally help you out and let you like lose your virginity to me so that you can go and sleep with your boyfriend and be okay with it. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness there.
Yeah, I kind of thought like when I guess he said that on Good Morning America, where she wanted to sleep with him to give her experience for her boyfriend, and it was just like a one-time thing. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cold to say that stuff. I mean, like, who's the one lying now? Who's making up stuff here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, there's some questionable stuff right there, and so I think that there's more to the story. It's hard because, obviously it was the 90s. We were looking at different timelines, and, I can't remember everything I did in the 90s. Can you? It's like, it's kind of crazy. So you just never, ever know. So we'll see. If she goes to the police, I mean, you can't be lying and going to the police, because you're going to get yourself in a whole lot of trouble if you're going with false evidence. Because then you're accusing someone who is, you're accusing someone who is married and has a 10-year-old daughter, and you're going to be ruining their life. So you better be going with some strong evidence and some people that can back you up and back up this story.
Yeah, that's the part. I cringed like when he was talking about his daughter. He's like, my daughter's having to protect me at school now and defend me when I'm the one that should be defending her. Right.
Then again, if the allegations are true, and that's the thing, I think we need to find a way to not just throw the allegations out there on Twitter. We need to find maybe a more sane, calm, rational way to get these stories out. I feel like social media should be kind of the last resort. Like, nobody's listening to you. HR didn't listen to you. Your family and friends didn't listen to you. That's, the police didn't listen to you. That's maybe, you know what I mean? Like, you really should be using Twitter as the very last resort, because it just catches on fire, and there was a lot of fighting back and forth on both sides and people supporting both of them. So
sure. Yeah, that's when these people take to Twitter to make these claims, it just rubs me such the wrong way, because I'm like, it's such a serious situation, and to put it out there on social media like that, it's like, I don't know, it lessens it to me. You know what I mean? Like,
it's hard though, because it's how we took Harvey down, because nobody was listening. It's how Kevin Spacey got taken down, because nobody was listening. But then again, there has to be a checks and balance system. We'll figure it out. It's just taking some time. The unions are all adopting, new rules and new regulations. So I think that this is going to help tremendously as well.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
For sure.
So the other old story, I think I know what this is as well, but go ahead.
Robert Wagner.
Yep.
Natalie Wood. how about that? I cannot wait. I was like, wow, I'm working Saturday night, but I was like, I'm going to make sure I go back and watch this 48 hours because they're saying, hey, we have some evidence possibly that, he's a person of interest. He's not a suspect, but that Robert Wagner is a person of interest because he is the last person, they believe, to see Natalie Wood alive. And they've taken a harder look at the autopsy results and that, she did have a lot of fresh bruises where they believe she was assaulted before she wound up in the ocean. I'm so interested. I want to know where this goes.
I do too, but it's kind of like it's 40 years later, isn't it? Or almost 40? Like
81 she passed away. 1981. And you look at people who have investigated this, they're in their 80s now. And I think Robert Wagner is up there too. It's one of those crazy things where are we ever really going to get this solved? Should we just let her rest in peace? I don't know.
I can tell you, I still remember the exact moment that it was that they announced Natalie Wood died. I was in my mother's bedroom with my mom. We were wrapping Christmas presents, and we had the radio on, and we heard the announcement on the radio. I'll never forget that moment.
Oh, that's interesting. And see, I know for my mom loves Natalie Wood, and she was like, I think she dragged out like every single Natalie Wood movie that year, and I watched it.
Wow.
Shame. Unbelievable. Yeah, because as she died November 29th, it was over the Thanksgiving weekend. So I remember my mom was like, okay, you're going to watch Miracle on 34th Street, and, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I really want to see, they're saying that a couple new witnesses have come forward. So how does that affect the case? I'll be watching it very closely this weekend for sure.
Again, it's almost 40 years later. Like, where were these people 40 years ago?
I don't know. Why weren't they investigated? Why didn't we have this information? It doesn't make any sense. And honestly, think about your memory of something 40 years ago.
Right.
How good is it? I mean, there's certain things you'll always remember, but there's other details we've totally lost.
Like, I'm having trouble remembering stuff from 4 hours ago.
That's where I'm at, too. I'm like, what did I do? Where did I go? Yeah. So, that's kind of an interesting one, though, to keep your eye out for. And I was probably there's probably a lot of 20-somethings that were reading their gossip, online sites today, and they're like, who's Robert Wagner? Who's Natalie Wood?
Right. Right.
They have no idea. And the other interesting thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, my wife sent me over the link this afternoon about it, and as soon as I saw it pop up my messenger, I was just like, really? Or again, we're going with this?
This has been 3 or 4 times too over the years.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that what was I going to say about this? Oh, you have to remember Robert Wagner also wound up raising some of Natalie Wood's kids after she passed away. So they consider Robert Wagner, a stepfather and a father to them.
Right. Now, it's been, if I'm not mistaken, it's been Natalie Wood's sister who's the one who's really pushed over the years.
Yeah, she doesn't feel like she got the answer. I mean, you have to remember also that Walken was there. There was a rumor that Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood were involved. And, that story that always seems a little plausible, that there was some sort of fight or that the affair was discovered. And, that aspect of it has never really been turned over. That's what I want to know. Was there an affair? Was there a fight over the affair? Whether the fight was between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner, or the fight was between Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken, and somehow Natalie Wood interfered. There's so many possibilities.
It's funny too, because I had just watched one of them documentaries shows on the whole that whole situation, and Natalie Wood's sister was on there, but it really it seemed very like all the details just seemed so sketchy once it gets to that point, like that they went to sleep. You know, it was just like everything just seemed like people. You can tell like there's bits and pieces of the story that they're not telling.
Right. There was a lot of drinking on board. They know that. They know that Natalie Wood was like afraid of water. Like she just was not a strong swimmer. She's out on a boat. It's dark. It's cold. They're near Catalina. There's nothing near Catalina Island either. Like it's just, if you're out in the water, you're out in the water. I mean, you can't, it's not easy to swim to land. It's very choppy water too. They said she was found in her nightgown and like a down vest. Originally they were like, oh, she took dinghy out. I'm like, why would she take a dinghy out? Like to get to shore? That doesn't make any sense. Like Catalina is a quiet, sleepy island. They probably close by like 9:30. So that still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Like I can't swim. I don't go on boats. I won't even go on a cruise, let alone, a small boat. You know, there is no way.
That makes sense. So. Yeah, and she's afraid of the water and she's drinking. Like, she's not going to take a dinghy out. She's just not.
No, not at all.
The last thing she's going to do. Yeah, exactly. So we will see what happens and how this plays out. I don't know. But I was fascinated that we're going to bring this back up one more time. They're probably just trying to get it through before Robert Wagner passes. He's in his 80s.
And I mean, here's a guy who went on. He's gone on through since then, and his career has been, he's had an excellent career. It never held him back.
No, it didn't. So he was not suspected at all. I don't know. I know, and the cloud of suspicion around even Christopher Walken wasn't really there either. He's had a great career.
Yeah.
Robert Wagner is going to be 88 on February 10th in 9 days.
Cow.
So, yeah, I mean, if they're trying to get an answer, they better do so pretty quick. I'm not saying he's going to die tomorrow. He could live to 100, but, again, what are you going to do? Put him in? If you think he's like the guy that did it, you're going to put him in jail at this point?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Christopher Walken's 74.
That's all he is? I thought he was older.
Yeah, I know. He seems a little bit more feeble than that.
He does. And my buddy's a tattoo artist, and at the tattoo shop he works at, one of the other tattoo artists did a painting of Christopher Walken. And I just crack up every time I look at it.
That's fun. He's a character.
He is. It's too funny.
Sure.
How about, speaking of characters, Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers.
Isn't that perfect?
It's scary.
They really look alike when they do the side-by-side headshots.
At first I'm like, no. And then I saw the headshot. I'm like, oh, yeah, it works.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And so it's one of those things that I'm like, gosh, that's so perfect. I'm like, why didn't we think of this sooner? But, Mr. Rogers is having a little bit of a moment. There was a Mr. Rogers documentary that came out at Sundance Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. So it's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? So he's kind of having like a little pop culture moment. And we'll be seeing the documentary. We'll be seeing, of course, the film probably in the next couple of years. So I think everyone's interested in good old Mr. Rogers again.
Do you think, I mean, we know he's a great actor. Do you think like a role like this could really catapult him to even higher? I mean, if this movie turns out to be like a huge success, into like, all right, maybe Tom Hanks is the best modern actor out there today.
I mean, I'm surprised he didn't wind up with an Oscar nomination for The Post opposite, Meryl, because Meryl got one. He's definitely up there. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is another one. He's got him beat in terms of Academy Awards. But, Daniel Day-Lewis is saying, I'm retiring. So I think that Tom Hanks still has more in him. He could possibly win at least one more Oscar. I think we could see that happening.
Now, did you see The Post? How was that?
Pretty good. I think it wasn't my favorite of the year, but I think it's a strong message and kind of taking a look at journalism. And, you know, when you have so many people crying fake news, you really have to take a look at the Washington Post and the research that they in their history that they've done. And Catherine Graham, of course, who ran the newspaper for a long time. So I think it's worth seeing. I wouldn't say run out and spend, you know, $15 on it at the movie theater, but when it comes out, definitely watch it.
I think that speaks volumes right there.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think now where movies are so expensive and people oftentimes have to get babysitters and stuff like that, to me that's reserved for like the big, huge, epic movies. Like the Black Panther, you should go out and spend the money and do something fun. Or if there's like something big like a Titanic, go out, or something with a beautiful cinematography or something like Lion had a few years ago or last year. To me, that's worth it. But otherwise, like if it's a small indie film or, you know, something that's quieter you can watch on your home screen, that's fine. You don't need to go out and spend $75 on a night.
Yeah, right. So I'm not even going to ask about winners or losers of the Super Bowl. I want to ask halftime show. Do you think we are going to see either NSYNC, Janet Jackson, or both?
I'm going to say no to NSYNC. They've kind of already said no. They're like, I'd be rehearsing instead of hanging out here in LA if I was going to be on there. And this is why I really think that he's not going to do NSYNC, because Justin Timberlake is in it for Justin Timberlake this time around. He's got a new album to sell. He's not here to sell NSYNC's, you know, library. He did that at MTV. I do think that he could possibly bring out Jennifer Lopez, Janet Jackson, because we haven't heard from her. Where is she? Has anyone tracked her down this week?
Right. I've seen they've talked to like a couple of her people, and they've all like, you know, they deny, but then it's like, oh, you just have to wait and see.
If you're doing the wait and see, here's the other thing. Like the other thing that would make me think no, I'm like, does Janet really need Justin? She doesn't. You know, she's doing fine without him. But it would be probably the most talked about halftime show if she does show up.
Oh, absolutely.
If shows up, I don't think I would talk about it as much. If Janet shows up, I'd be like, okay. And they redo that song.
Right. See, like I would
have naked by the end of that song.
I would, you know, this is going to be the biggest stage, the biggest audience. I would pull out all the frequent stops and just go all the way with it, you know, and just blow the doors off, pulling sync out for, you know, a minute, 90 seconds to give them, pull Janet Jackson out, do it all. Just totally blow the roof off.
Hey, you know, Beyonce did. She brought back Destiny's Child when she did the halftime show. You could totally do it.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, she had a great performance. I feel like he's not going to do NSYNC. I feel like Janet's still a possibility, though. That's kind of where my head's at. The other thing I'm just going to say, you know, they always do the Saturday night Big Bash that DirecTV does, and J-Lo is headlining it. And I said, keep your eyes on her because I feel like she could be a halftime performer next year.
Oh, totally. Yep. I'm surprised. Yeah.
And Katy Perry did it with DirecTV, and then like a couple years later, she was the halftime show. So keep your eyes open.
Interesting. It's. I'll tell you what. Like it is a packed weekend here in Philly. Like the pep rally started today, and I'm going to one tomorrow night. Going to another one Saturday afternoon. It's going to be nonstop all weekend. I can't wait. And the city is completely.
It's going to be fun for you guys.
If there's a criminal in the city of Philadelphia and they have half a brain, this is the week to commit a crime because there's no conversation of crime on TV all week on all the newscasts. It's just 24/7 Eagles.
That's amazing. Well, of course. When's the last time Eagles were in the Super Bowl? It's been a little bit, right?
14 years ago.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's like, you know, you get excited when your team's finally like in the mix. You're like, we've waited for this.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Everybody's waiting patiently.
Oh, absolutely. And, I've got to say that it's like, here on the West Coast, I'm like, I have Sunday off. I'm so excited that there's a Super Bowl because it's going to be quiet here in LA. I'm going to have snacks. Even though I don't really care about the outcome that much, I'm like, I will watch and I will sit on my couch and I will nap and eat and nap and eat. It's going to be great. I'm all for it.
Another big question is, like, I was asking on my little Facebook Live before we came on the air, I'm like, what are people more excited for? Are they excited more for the commercials, the food, the partying, or the actual game?
For me, it's always food. I like dip and I like chips. So That's what I'm in it for. I'm not a huge Justin Timberlake fan. Of course, I'm going to watch the halftime show. I will watch some of the commercials, although they're all pretty much out these days. You know what I mean? Like, they release them a week ahead of time. So I feel like I've been watching them, and publicists send me them. They're like, will you do an article about, our big Super Bowl commercial? And you're like, no.
I'll tell you what, I have refused to watch them.
Was gone.
Yeah.
Have you watched them? You haven't?
No, I refuse. Like, this year, I'm refusing to watch them because I remember last year I was so pissed off because every one of them aired before the actual Super Bowl, and it took the whole fun out of it. I actually enjoy watching the commercials during the Super Bowl and seeing, like, what people are doing for these commercials. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like, which one of the Budweiser commercials is going to make you sad and cry about some Clydesdale and stuff like that. When they take that away, you're just like, okay.
Yeah, it takes the whole fun away. It really does.
It does. I totally get that.
I'll tell you what, too, the all these hype videos that the Eagles are putting out and, like, people have been making for the Eagles, they have one, like, they naturally always do one, and they combine the Rocky clips. They did one. I was watching it. Excuse me. I was watching it last night. It was bringing tears to my eyes. I was like, oh, my God. Like, I had to stop watching it before I broke down.
Oh, that's awesome, though. East Coast teams, like, we got football teams out here, and we're like, whatever. But I always feel like on the East Coast, everyone really supports their teams and their sports personalities, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting weekend. It's going to be it's going to suck when it's over. It really is, because there's been such an excitement in the air that when it's finally over, it's going to be like back to reality.
Exactly. I know, you're like, back to Monday morning.
Unless we win, and then we have to wait till Tuesday for the parade.
I'm wishing you guys the best of luck. Tom Brady's a tough one to go up against. I will say that.
That's why he's the GOAT. He really is.
He is the GOAT. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I was like, he's still been playing at a high level, and at an age that where a lot of players retire. So I have to, give him some applause for that.
Hell yeah. It's funny because I had people were emailing me to set up interviews and stuff for during a week for next week, and one of them was like, all right, how's Tuesday at 2:00? I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, I email him back. I'm like, you know what? Can we move that to Wednesday? I'm like, if the Eagles win, I'm going to the parade. I'm sorry. I don't want to know nothing that day. I said I'm waiting 47 years for this.
That's right. Enjoy it.
It'll be well deserved.
Exactly. We'll see what happens.
We will. You'll probably hear us screaming over here 3,000 miles away.
Exactly. I'll be like, wait a minute, that was loud.
So what do you got on the plan for next week?
Well, I have the Animation Awards on Saturday, which are always really fun, and we'll probably see Coco come away with the big win, because that's anticipated to win the big animation category at the Oscars. And then I'm headed to Chicago next week, so I will not be joining you guys next Thursday. I will be there for a live broadcast with Subaru at the Chicago Auto Show.
Oh, doing Subaru this time around.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be freezing in Chicago. I don't know what the actual temperature is, but I'm sure it's like single digit.
Oh boy, oh boy. Well,
I
good
know.
luck with that.
Thank you. Yes, it's always fun to be in that. I do love Chicago a whole lot, but yeah, it's 12 right now. So there you go. I just looked.
12.
12 degrees.
It was like 16 here yesterday. It's funny because it was colder here yesterday than it was in Minnesota, and then today it was like almost 50 degrees. Like what? I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's so hard to believe. I mean, hopefully, is Minnesota supposed to stay in the 50s?
No. Here it was 50 today. Minnesota's like, I think
Four?
today, it was like ridiculously cold. But yesterday it was colder here than it was in Minnesota.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So then I guess we'll be catching up in 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed we will. So good luck on Sunday, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how this plays out.
Absolutely. Safe travels and stay warm next week.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right, Kristyn. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, well, there she goes, Kristyn Burtt. Check her out. She's all over the world of social media. Kristyn Burtt, Kristyn Burtt. Excuse me, that's Kristyn Burtt. Jeanette, are you still there or did you drop off? I see, you've been really, really quiet.